The heart is basically as radiant and vast and open as the sky itself. And it's always thus. But to be resting there means resting in this openness, resting in the empty nature of things, including the nature of the sense of self.
Welcome to Healing at the Edge, a podcast featuring interviews, archive talks, and teachings on conscious living, conscious dying with RamDev Dale Borglum, brought to you by the Be Here Now Network. Dale has been a meditation teacher for nearly 50 years and has been at the bedside of the dying and their loved ones for over 40 years. He was the director of the Hanuman Foundation and founded the first Center for Conscious Dying in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He's taught with Stephen Levine, Ram Dass, and countless others on the spiritual path. Dale is still working with the dying today. For more information, please visit livingdying.org.
Welcome, this is Dale Borglum, and today I would like to talk about opening the heart. Seems like a basic topic, but I have these ongoing groups, and a few days ago, on Wednesday, I was leading a group that's been going on since 2009, 15 years, weekly or every other week, depending on what time frame we're talking about. And one of the women right at the end of the group said, "How do you open your heart? You're presenting theory, not practice." And I was kind of shocked because I really think that what we're doing here and what I've been doing in this group for 15 years, she'd been in the group for 15 years. And she said, "How do you open your heart?" So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm not quite as articulate as I thought I was. It's like, and she said, "You're theoretical, not practical," which, as I said before, I try to be as practical as I can. I'm a kind of a scientist. I used to be a scientist, and I'm not interested in theory. I'm interested in not suffering. I'm interested in you not suffering. I'm interested in us awakening, right? So I really began to think about her question. And then at the same time, I got a phone call from another dear friend of mine who I've known for about 40 years. And she just had been scammed out of a lot of money by somebody she supposedly trusted. She's a meditation teacher. She's done a lot of spiritual practice. She was with Maharaji for a while. And she was so sad. She was just overwhelmed by how much ignorance and greed and suffering there is in the world. So I thought about her, and I won't even mention another friend of mine who got robbed at the gas station and felt that he wouldn't mind killing the person if he ever came across that person. We won't mention who that is. Anyway, so 3 people I know who have been practicing for really a long time, and were really expressing how their heart was not open and kind of not finding a way out of that. So I would like to dig into that today and investigate why it is so hard to open the heart, why it's so hard to keep the spacious heart open when it feels so much like home. It feels so wonderful when the heart is open. And we all know practices that work: mantras, prayers, chanting, meditation, satsang. All these things work usually and often temporarily. But what is it that keeps us from resting there, and how can we rest there more often? So the first thing, of course, is motivation. If, in fact, you're comfortable in your mental prison, if you don't mind feeling that sense of disconnection in the heart, then the hard work of diving in there is not going to be something that's immediately chosen. The Buddha said, "It is a rare person who isn't startled or terrified by the Heart Sutra." Okay. Now, the Heart Sutra, the Buddhist Heart Sutra, he says that form is emptiness and emptiness is nothing but form. Now, that's a theoretical statement, and I can see why my friend says maybe sometimes I'm being theoretical. But in Buddhism, they say very clearly the nature of the heart is empty. The nature of the open heart has these qualities of being empty, or could be called spacious. It's a connected heart and it's a warm heart. And the Buddha says it's terrifying, it's startling to really understand what the nature of the heart is. The heart is basically as radiant and vast and open as the sky itself. And it's always thus. But to be resting there means resting in this openness, resting in the empty nature of things, including the nature of the sense of self. Okay. That you and I've got this body. I'm in Fairfax. You've got a body. Very few of you are in Fairfax, wherever you are. And that's real. But at the same time, it's real only in the context of the fact there is no separate self. There is no solid you running the show. And that's what the heart reveals. The heart reveals this quality of vast openness. So Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, the wonderful non-dual saint who died not so long ago, says, the mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses the abyss. This abyss of understanding, of knowing, of being in charge, of being theoretical, right, is a very comfortable place. I have a PhD in that place, okay? And at the same time, it is an abyss. It's a trap. There is this heart quality that frees us from the abyss. The first way of looking at this, of how to open the heart, and I'm going to give, and we're going to explore together some very basic practices today together for opening the heart. The first part of it is creating a foundation for opening the heart, because we can't open the heart until we're with, in a very immediate and direct way, that which is blocking our attachment to understanding, our attachment to being in that abyss. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, and the ego is the ultimate form. It's the mother of all forms. The ego is the primary contraction that believes everything is solid, independent. And we are so lost in that delusion that we don't see that we're lost. So the first thing is beginning to see embodied mindfulness. We've talked about this again and again and again, getting grounded, getting centered. And grounding and centering are the antidotes to fear, guilt, and shame. It is rare that a client doesn't come to me, a dying person or a meditation student, who says, I just want to be with God, and we just dive in there, because almost always there are these issues of fear, guilt, and shame that are right out in the front, that are blocking the sky-like spacious nature of the heart. So grounding and centering requires directly meeting these qualities. Can we begin to trust that this is a healing process? Can we begin to be with our guilt, our shame, our fear? When we're lost in those qualities, the heart will not be open. So one of the first things is to begin to, in a very practical way, begin to feel the difference between what it feels like when the heart is open, the heart that is connected. There's a practice. Is the heart feeling connected? Are you feeling connected to me? Are you feeling connected to God right now, to your own true self? If not, is there anything more important to do than to stop and deal with that? Right? Is there some understanding or efficiency or something to collect that is more important than in this moment being in that state of openness? Now, one of my basic practices is trusting that spacious nature and just breathing into the heart. Often I include that with, I combine that with saying a mantra. I breathe into the heart, I say a mantra, and I do it with my breath. With each in breath, I just breathe into the heart, almost like there's this drill. It's just like drilling into the heart. And sometimes it's painful, physically painful. Sometimes it's very physically painful, but it's a wonderful pain. It's the pain of release. It's the pain of opening. Right now, is the heart open? Are you connected? Is it spacious? Is it warm? Any one of those three qualities, paying attention to that and making that a priority for part of every day, not just when you're meditating, but you're talking to people, you're lying in bed, you're going to sleep, you're moving about out in the world. Can the open heart be a priority? Now, even after we've begun to work very directly with fear, guilt, and shame, it's hard for the heart to stay open because we are all grieving. There's a big grief of big things we've lost. There's this subtle grief because we're feeling disconnected. We've lost ourselves. We've lost connection with ourselves. So that beginning to feel that grief right now, it often manifests as this background anxiety, fear, guilt, shame, grief, anxiety. All these things are arising, passing away moment to moment to moment. And the first thing, as I say, is being willing to feel that. I've been meditating for over 50 years. It takes humility to admit to myself how often my heart closes because of the irritating nature of being in a body. That's right. Of all the stuff that's going on out there in the world. A couple of nights ago, I went to the local grocery store after dark. The first thing that happened is some guy decided, because it was dark and the store was almost closed, that he was going to go the wrong way down the lane in the parking lot, and he almost smashed into me. And then I'm leaving the parking lot, and it's after dark, and some other person in a black car without their lights on comes flying by and almost hits me. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? That's the way the world is. People are ready to drive into you at a moment's notice, right? There is a lot of ignorance in the world. There's a lot of ignorance also within each of us. So the qualities of the open heart that I'd like to emphasize are devotion and compassion. Devotion is loving that which is easiest to love. Devotion is loving God, loving self with a capital S, true nature, loving Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. It doesn't have to be anthropomorphized, but this quality of trusting love, trusting we can be devoted to that which is holy and pure, if you will. Maharaji said, love the Guru with intense passion. Now, by the Guru, he didn't mean loving him as a person. He meant loving that which does not die, that which is whole. Love the Guru with intense passion. He said, if you love God, you overcome all impurities. He didn't talk about yoga or all kinds of complicated things, but loving other people, loving God, loving self with intense passion. How much devotion do we have to the path? How much devotion do we have to awareness itself? Have you had the experience that when you're mindful, there's a sense of spaciousness in the heart? When you're caught in things, when you're not being mindful, the heart hurts a bit. There's a yearning, there's a disconnection. Can we begin to trust that? So, just as an example of a practice right now, first of all, do that thing I was saying before. Just imagine that you can breathe right into your heart. There's like nostrils in the center of your chest. You're breathing in, you're touching that place that is so tender, so merciful, breathing into the heart, each breath going a little deeper, trusting this opening, trusting that if you're in the heart, the way you're living in the world will be coming from this sense of wisdom and wholeness. And then I'd like to have you visualize in front of you some representation of the guru, Christ, the mother. If there's not some particular deity that appeals to you more than any other, or some being, some person, then let it just be a generic being of light. And imagine this being is in front of you. And not just as a mental picture, but realize that this is primordially true, that the guru, this sense of wholeness, is in front of you every moment, now and now. Everything is a display of this pure consciousness. Maharaja says, I'm always in communion with you. So, can you begin to feel what it's like to be sitting in front of this being in the sense of receiving that blessing and at the same time reaching out and loving that being? There's a giving and receiving happening at the same time. As if this being is the mother who has the greatest love for her only child. In the outer level, we're simply remembering that the guru is a display of the one mind. And at a deeper level, the inner level, as the heart begins to become purified, we receive these blessings. We receive the blessings that are always there. We receive the grace that is always there. Receiving the grace that is always there. And at the secret level, we visualize this guru, this being in our own heart. It's not something that's out there only. It's out there, it's in here, it's everywhere. So at the secret level, the guru is in the heart. The most secret level, we realize that we have been inseparable from this always. And the absolute level of this practice is that we totally merge our mind, blend the mind with the mind of the guru, realizing that your true nature is that true nature. It is not separate at all. It could not be separate. It's not devotion to something separate. It's radical surrender into that which is. So often in beginning practice, we're aware of content. Could we make unconditional love the object of awareness? That whatever it is, the sound of my voice, the sensations in your body, the breath coming and going, movement happening, whatever's going on, is a manifestation of this essential nature. So that as perception keeps arising, without the need then to analyze or compare or figure out, we're surfing on that realization that each moment in this eternal now is a full manifestation of that one. And this is a much easier practice, keeping the heart open, when we're doing guru yoga than we're trying to love finite beings, including ourselves and other people, right? That almost everybody comes with a package of personality quirks and contractions, so that eventually, to support devotion, we have to cultivate compassion. Compassion is simply keeping the heart open in this way we've been talking about, at these deepening levels when there is suffering. These moments of fear, guilt, shame, grief, whatever it might be, in ourselves and other people, people who are acting recklessly, selfishly, greedily, whatever way, all these, there will always be ignorance in the world. There always has been, there always will be. And if we're going to be overwhelmed with sadness or anger or fear, whenever we encounter that, it's going to be a very rocky road. Can we trust? Can we open to? Can we surrender into that devotion deeply enough that it begins to carry over into compassion? But at the same time, can we begin to have compassion for the part of ourself whose devotion is at times shaky? That the path of devotion, as straightforward as it sounds, will again and again and again reveal those places where we're caught, where we're not able to feel devotion. Can we have some compassion for that? Maybe not even in the moment, but we have to do it retrospectively. Can you have compassion for the part of you that pulls back from the surrender into love? Staying completely open while simultaneously realizing that suffering exists. Compassion is the necessary prerequisite for resting in the sacred nature of reality. Can we make a commitment to compassion so that we're much larger? Everybody is much larger than the good or bad stories we tell about ourselves and about each other. Do we need to get caught in those stories? The stories have truth to them, to be sure. But the way that your personality or my personality interacts with those stories and the suffering that creates, can we begin to bring a loving awareness toward that, bring compassion toward that? So that there's this twofold flow, this twofold practice that's going on at the same time. One is connecting with this flow of bodhicitta, of awakened heart, and the other is being awake to where the flow is blocked. Back and forth, back and forth. This back and forth will be going on for a very long time, where we feel that love, we pull back from it, we feel it, we pull back from it, and really getting in touch with that difference and trusting the surrender back into it. So there are other meditations that I have here for generating compassion, where you picture people in front of you that you care about. In fact, why don't we do one brief compassion exercise? So think about, in your life, is there somebody that you really care about who's suffering and you feel strongly that their happiness is important to you? A child, a parent, a dear friend. And can you imagine them being in front of you? This person that you care about so much that's having a hard time right now. And can you begin then by wishing in a very deeply heartfelt way that they be free from suffering? May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they find happiness in the causes of happiness. And then as you're doing this, feeling the flow of loving kindness, feeling where it's blocked. Beginning with somebody that's easy to love, somebody you care about, compassion for this person. You can even say a slogan, may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. May they be free from the causes of suffering. But you really won't feel deep compassion until you're willing to feel in your body what you imagine it is like to be this person. What does it feel like when they're suffering? Can you be touched by that? Can you be moved by that? Can your heart, your tender heart, your merciful heart be touched by the suffering of this person? And then letting go of that person and finding another person in your life who it's harder for you to love, somebody that maybe you don't even know them, maybe you know about them, a political figure, or somebody you do know who is not your best friend, somebody who's suffering. And can you do the same practice for them? Beginning to generate a wish that they be free from suffering and from the causes of suffering. Allowing yourself to be touched by what it's like to be them, how their suffering is affecting them, letting that touch you. And if you have a hard time doing that, then have compassion for the part of you that's having a hard time opening to this other person. Wherever you find yourself in this practice, compassion for that. And then saying goodbye to that person. And one final part of this practice, we'll do it with a collective group of people. And let's try to imagine the suffering of people who are at the mercy of war in the Middle East and Ukraine. And first of all, think of all the women who are in these war zones and how they're suffering collectively. And once again, can you begin to have a wish that they be free from suffering? All these women, forces so far beyond their control are causing unimaginable suffering in their lives. Their loved ones have died, possibly. Things they've seen, the insecurity of being fed, surviving even to tomorrow. What must that be like? Can your heart be moved by that? Can you realize that your heart is large enough, spacious enough, empty enough? Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. That you can be open to all of these beings. And then letting all these women be replaced by all the children in these war zones. Same practice. Right before you are countless children, big children, small children, babies, almost completely powerless in the forces of what's going on in their lives. Surviving, being fed, some of them orphans. Not getting lost in emotion. Letting the heart be bigger, more spacious, empty than even all of the suffering. The heart so sad that there's suffering, and yet so spacious that there is a joyfulness, that the openness of the heart. There's a joy that transcends happiness and sadness. a joy that is the nature of consciousness itself. Some of these children are starving, so hungry. And let these children then be replaced by all the men, all the adult men in these war zones, same practice, spacious heart, boundless heart. Not only are some of these men suffering because of their lives being out of control, but some of them are suffering because they're causing the war. Compassion for all the suffering. Victim, perpetrator, guilty, innocent, beyond all of those labels. And then finally, all the animals, all the sentient beings, all the animals that aren't human. Compassion for them. Feeling the suffering, opening the heart to the suffering and the causes of suffering. And then finally coming back to your own body, sitting here as we meditate together, feeling the sensations in your body, accepting yourself exactly as you are. Sensations as a gateway to presence, as a feeling of love, acceptance, compassion for yourself, being simple and easy. Sensing your inherent wholeness. You are pure presence. Your essence is love. We can come back to this truth, this feeling in a moment. We can make unconditional love the object of mindfulness moment to moment. What is the most important thing? And when we've lost connection with our heart, is there anything more important than stopping, feeling the suffering, feeling it intimately, with mercy, with tenderness? Devotion to awareness is, in some way, the secret sauce that leads to this being able to rest in love and compassion. Faith in how mindfulness leads to wisdom, which spirals then into letting go of self-clinging. Remembering the bliss, the joy of previous connectedness, the pain of separation. And coming back into the room, eyes open. Okay. So obviously, it's easier to go deeply into love when your eyes are closed and I'm saying wise things in your ear, rather than driving in traffic with people who are not paying much attention and not being very loving themselves. But I've been meditating for so very long, and I keep asking myself, what am I waiting for? You know, how busy I am, how efficient I am, how my my Instagram post got 800,000 views or whatever it is now. I mean, all that stuff is interesting, but if it's happening at the expense of keeping the heart open, it's not worth it.